3 spine-chilling Airbnb encounters. Unveiling the haunted, sinister secrets of cursed rentals. Lisa and Mark thought they'd escaped the madness. The shooting sirens, the anxious faces in the subway, the never-ending bills gone, for now. They found what seemed to be an idyllic Airbnb in Maplewood, a suburb once hailed for its charm. With picket fences and blooming flowers, it looked perfect. But as they pulled up, unease twisted in the pit of their stomachs, feeling like they'd stepped into a postcard that might turn nightmare. The first night wrapped them in a deceptive veil of tranquility. Cicadas hummed while the moon cast eerie shadows over their new haven. But it didn't take long for the serenity to crack. Flickering lights turned the cozy living room into a theater of shadows, dancing figures that might not even exist. A scratching noise began to echo from the basement, gnawing at their nerves, and laughter turned into whispered confessions. "Did you hear that?" Lisa shivered, pressing closer to Mark. "Just old pipes," Mark said, feigning confidence. Yet even he felt the chills seep through the walls. They set the dinner table, enjoying a brief moment of normalcy. That's when they noticed the dusty guest book on the mantel. It whispered words of the past, terrifying accounts of missing tenants and ghosts of a couple who vanished without a trace. It's folklore, Mark brushed off the warnings, but Lisa wasn't so sure. As midnight approached, a blanket of unease settled in, deepening like the shadows around them. They needed more information, more than just the spine-chilling tales of previous guests. But when they reached for their phones, the screens mocked them. No signals, no data. Panic nestled in Lisa's chest, and it felt like a noose tightening. "I don't like this," she muttered, her fingers trembling as she gripped the flashlight. Determined, they ventured down into the basement, where that scratching had transformed into a relentless drum. It was now or never. The flashlight beam quivered as they creaked down the time-worn stairs into darkness that felt alive. Suddenly, they stumbled upon an old trunk, rotted and covered in dust. With pounding hearts, they pried it open. The sight that met their eyes was horrifying, a collection of personal belongings, each piece telling a story of those who crossed the threshold into Maplewood and never returned. Lisa gasped, her breath hitching as a shiver of dread crawled up her spine. The chilling question loomed. What had they walked into? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A soft knock echoed from above, and the air turned electric. "They're back," Mark whispered, fear clawing at his throat as he shot Lisa a terrified glance. The infamous couple had returned, just as their legends warned, and the realization gripped their hearts. Were they part of the sinister secrets Maplewood harbored? As the door creaked open, they held their breath, caught in a web of horror they never saw coming. Mark's question trembled in the haunted air. "What do you really know about them?" Time seemed to freeze. Terror bubbled, heartbeats quickened, and they were left standing on the edge, staring into the abyss of an unspeakable fate lurking behind the unassuming doors of suburban life. The door yawned open, revealing a narrow hallway shrouded in darkness. Flickering light from the hallway cast elongated shadows over the cluttered basement, where Lisa and Mark now stood frozen, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "Hello," a voice called out, chillingly familiar. It echoed with an unsettling familiarity that sent shivers down Lisa's spine. She turned to Mark, who wore a mask of sheer terror, his features pale and tense. "Who is it?" he managed to croak out, gripping her arm tightly. "Just us, again," the voice replied, a sly smile breaking over the figure's face as they stepped into the glimmer of light. It was a woman, her hair dark and cascading like tendrils of ink down her back, dressed in a vintage floral dress that looked eerily out of place in the shadowy basement. "What do you want?" Lisa asked, her voice quivering. The woman's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed to glint unnaturally in the dim light. We just want to play," she said, giggling softly as if she were inviting them to join some innocent game. Mark took a step back, pulling Lisa with him, but the basement door slammed shut with a deafening bang, locking them in. Panic surged. "We need to get out," he barked, slamming his shoulder against the door. But the woman just laughed. "Oh, you can't leave yet. You have to answer some questions," she said, her eyes gleaming like that of a predator savoring a moment of dread. "Questions?" Lisa echoed, her heart pounding against her ribcage. "What questions?" The story she purred, tilting her head. Why did they come here? Why did they never leave? Behind her, another figure appeared, a man, hauntingly gaunt, his clothes tattered and dirt-stained, eyes sunken and hollow. "Every tale has a price," he whispered, his voice a raspy echo of lost souls. "And you, my dear guests, have to pay it." "No," Mark shouted, pushing against the door with all his might. The walls trembled as if the house itself breathed a sigh of satisfaction. Shadows danced closer around them. "I need to know why none of your guests came back," Lisa stammered, trying to catch the woman's gaze, hoping for comprehension amid the madness. "What do you want from us?" The woman stepped forward, her breath as cold as winter frost. "It's not about what we want from you, but what you want from us." Her eyes darkened, a frenzied glimmer sparking within. "Join us, or suffer the fate of the forgotten." Clark, despite the knot in his stomach, shouted back, "We're not afraid of you." "Ah, but fear is the beginning of understanding," the man hissed, inching closer, his bony fingers twitching. "What will it be, precious guests?" "The door is locked, but the shadows tell stories older than you can imagine." Lisa's eyes darted to the trunk, unearthed from the basement floor, still open with memories encased inside. Sweat rolled down her back as a cold realization hit her. The belongings had connected them to lives once lived here, lives that had slipped into obscurity. "Find the truth, or become a new tale of woe," the woman taunted, her tone dripping with malice. Mark glanced back at Lisa, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. "What do we do? How do we escape?" Before she could reply, an unnatural gust of wind surged through the room, extinguishing the flickering light. Darkness enveloped them, and whispers filled the air, a cacophony of anguished voices. In that terrifying void, only one thought remained. Could they unravel the twisted tapestry of Maplewood before they became threads woven into its sinister history? Lisa barely managed to think. We have to confront them, but who were they truly confronting? And could they escape the curse already tightening around them? As the whispers crescendoed into a haunting symphony, one question echoed louder than the rest. Could they afford the price of the truth? Lisa's breath quickened, the air thick with dread. The darkness pressed against her, almost alive, whispering secrets lost to time. The shadows twisted and swirled, forming indistinct shapes that danced just beyond the edge of her vision. Fear gripped her. "Mark, we can't stay here," she hissed, trying to sound stronger than she felt. But somewhere deep down, she sensed the truth that staying meant facing whatever horrors awaited them. Suddenly, the whispers changed. They became clearer, each guttural sound forming words that clawed at her sanity. "They never came back, they never came back," the echo reverberated in the cramped space, the shadows writhing with every syllable. "What do you want?" Mark shouted angrily, desperation thick in his voice. "What do you want from us?" The woman stepped back into the feeble light, her grin widening. The malice in her eyes gleamed like polished obsidian. "The truth, my dear. The truth is the price for your escape. Only then can you join us or leave us behind." Her voice was a sweet poison, intoxicating and deadly. "Join or die?" Lisa murmured, her heart thudding loudly against her chest. "What kind of fate awaits us if we refuse?" The man moved closer, his face an ashen mask marred by a smirk. "The worst fate of all, being forgotten." His words struck like a blow, twisting the knife deeper into their collective fear. Lisa's mind raced. Forgotten. The families, the people, all lost, merely echoes of existence in this basement. Memories trapped like insects in amber. Shaken, she glanced at the trunk, her thoughts spiraling. What if the belongings held the key? "Look," she cried suddenly, pointing towards an item that protruded from the trunk, a tattered diary, its pages yellowed with age. What if their stories are right there? Mark moved closer, trembling as he reached for the diary. As his fingers brushed against its cover, everything changed. A wave of icy air slammed into them. The shadows shuddered, coiling tighter around their limbs like a serpent constricting its prey. "No!" The woman shrieked, her playful demeanor vanishing, replaced by rage. You cannot read what was never meant for you. With each word Mark recited from the diary, the basement trembled. Distortion ignited the air around them. Faces appeared in the shadows, their mouths twisted in silent cries, eyes wide with terror. Stories dying before they could be told. What have you done? The man howled, the shadows recoiling, morphing into tendrils of black mist. The texture of fear wrapped around them, suffocating, choking the air. We have to stop. Lisa's voice broke through the chaos. But it was too late. The malevolence was unleashed. Suddenly, an unseen force launched at them, uprooting Lisa from her feet. She screamed. Mark lunged, managing only to grip her wrist just before the darkness pulled her under. They stumbled, the words of the diary blurring as another voice began to emerge. It wasn't he, just the shadows. A collective wail filled the basement. Let us out. Let us out. The voices descended into a frenzy, drowning their pleas in a cacophony of despair. Hold on, Mark shouted, trying to brace himself against the storm of voices. We're still here. Then, with blinding speed, the shadows receded, returning to their corners, leaving behind a faded impression of faces pressed against the walls. And in their wake, a complete silence, pregnant with tension. Panting, Lisa looked up at Mark, their faces mere inches apart. Did we really unleash them? I think we did, he panted, spitting words out as if they were burning hot. But if we answer their questions, maybe we can stop this. Or maybe, Lisa murmured, dread creeping in again. Maybe that's what they want. As the darkness thickened once more, amping up the suffocating atmosphere, another question lingered in the air. What if the truth was worse than the shadows that sought them? The silence hung thick, tinged with the scent of damp earth and fear. Mark's eyes flickered around the basement, scanning the minutiae he barely registered before. The rickety wooden frame, the musty smell of mildew, and, of course, those terrible faces embedded in the walls. They were like ghostly witnesses, fixed in a never-ending scream. Maybe if we talk to them, Mark stammered, half to himself, we can make them understand. Understand what? Lisa shot back, her voice trembling. That we didn't ask for this. She felt bile rise in her throat. Each breath pulled at her sanity, unraveling her composure further. Mark pressed the diary to his chest, the weight of the stories from within it pressing down on him. The truth, Lisa. Their truth. If we find out what happened, maybe we can figure out a way to help them. A flicker in the shadows caught her eye, a brief flash of movement at the edge of vision. Her heart raced. Mark. She choked. Did you see that? Before he could respond, the whispering grew louder, a horrific symphony of wails and laughter intertwined, their echoes wrapping around them, binding them tighter in an invisible grip. Though she couldn't put a face to it, she felt something reach toward her, elongating the space until it almost scraped against her skin. Stop! Mark yelled, frustration spilling over. Stop lying. We didn't mean to what? The woman purred, stepping forward again, her shadow creeping out like fingers along the floor. Your blunders have brought us to life. She leaned closer, her breath cold against Lisa's face. Now you must live with our truth. What do you want from us? Lisa gasped, feeling tears brimming in her eyes as the shadows twisted tighter, choking her words. Live, remember, be forever bound to the shadows, the woman replied, and her smile widened, teeth glinting like daggers. Or join us in the darkness. But there is a cost. A cost. The implication sent a shiver down Lisa's spine. She felt the tattered diary in Mark's hands pulse, resonating with something ancient. We can still escape, Mark, she implored. If we just, but what if we can't? He snapped back, a wild look in his eyes. What if this is all there is? Don't say that. We can't just surrender. She wrenched the diary from his grasp. The pages rustled violently, urging her on. She took a breath, flipping through the brittle pages until the words danced wildly before her. With every line she read, the shadows stirred and resonated, their whispers coiling around her thoughts. Then a chilling realization gripped her. Mark these names, they're all listed here, those who never returned. Each name felt like a cold hand gripping her heart, squeezing tighter. No, you can't. The man lunged forward, panic twisting his features. Those who read their fate, they suffer. The temperature plummeted, turning their breath into fog. We must know. We must. Before Lisa could finish, the basement shook violently. The shadows roared, angry now. Their discontent was palpable, like a living organism beneath the floorboards. Suddenly, the lights flickered and dimmed, the darkness swallowing them whole. The shadows lunged forward, tendrils of darkness reaching to claim them. Lisa screamed, throwing the diary aside, but the cursed words trapped the air. No, you cannot escape now. Mark gripped her hand tighter, the warmth of his touch sparking a fleeting flicker of hope. We have to act now. We can't just sit here. The woman's laughter echoed, a sinister melody chasing them deeper into despair. Your fight is futile. The truth is coming, it will find you. As the shadows loomed and the whispers grew into a storm, Lisa and Mark were left facing an impossible choice. Confront the horror of the diary or yield to the darkness creeping ever closer. Mark, she squeezed his hand, terror coiling in her gut. What if the truth is worse than we thought? And with those words, the basement erupted in echoes of the past, ready to send them spiraling into an abyss of forgotten souls. The air turned electric with dread, thickening around them. Shadows writhed like snakes, and the woman's laughter twisted into a cacophony that sent vibrations racing through Lisa's chest. Each sound cut at the veil of humanity left in the darkness, stripping them bare. Mark, what do we do? She screamed, her voice barely slicing through the chaos. Her pulse thundered, matching the intensity of the raging darkness. Hold on, he shouted, pulling her toward a small window at the far wall. The glass looked old, coated with the grime of years, but it was their only hope. A moment of clarity surged through him, a desperate plan materializing amid the terror. If we can just break this, maybe. As Mark lunged for it, the ground quaked like a living thing. The walls appeared to breathe, exhaling muffled cries that pressed against their eardrums. The shadows shrieked, angry faces distorting into forms that haunted their memories. You think escape is possible? The woman taunted, her voice oily and slick, creeping along the edges of their minds. Mark hesitated. I won't let them take you. He turned, fire in his eyes. He grabbed the diary from the floor where Lisa had thrown it. The pages fluttered like trapped butterflies, calling out with ancient words that stirred dark whispers. Stop. Those words will only bind us more. Lisa grabbed his arm, her grip icy with terror. But the pull of the diary was strong. It felt alive, thrumming with energy, urging him to dive deeper into its secrets. With knowledge comes power, he yelled back, his voice leaving a crack in the air that reverberated with uncertainty. He opened the diary. The light flickered, illuminating the words that glowed faintly on the pages, a history of despair, isolation, and madness. Each sentence painted a picture of misfortunes, of souls lost to time. Mark, don't. You don't know what this will do. Lisa cried, but it was too late. The moment he began to read, blood-curdling screams erupted from every corner of the basement. The faces in the walls convulsed, eyes bulging, mouths opening wider in eternal agony. The shadows twisted violently, a whirlwind of despair closing in. The whispers merged into a single guttural roar that rattled Mark's bones. I feel them, he stammered, eyes wide. His voice dropped to a whisper. They want us to join them. It's like they're beckoning. She shook her head, tears spilling as the shadows lunged forward, their tendrils snaking around her ankles. No, we have to resist. We can't give in to this. With a dissonant screech, the cry rose to a fever pitch, nearly drowning out her thoughts. Just then, the temperature dropped sharply, and Lisa felt a chill slink through her core. She broke from Mark's hold and ran to the corner, where a jagged piece of wood lay half buried under the debris. Gripping it tightly, she turned back to Mark, whose face had turned ashen with the realization of what he had unleashed. We can fight it, Mark. If we hurry. Her heart raced as shadowy figures rushed forward, eager to drag them into their eternal agony. No, you don't understand. Mark's voice was rising in panic, battling against the roar. This is what they want. They're willing to do anything for it. To find peace? Lisa interrupted, advancing toward him, defiance burning in her eyes. There's only dread waiting for us in this darkness. At her words, the walls trembled, shadows recoiling as if offended by her defiance. The woman's visage appeared again, looming larger and more distorted than before. You cannot resist our truth, little girl. You will submit or suffer forever. I'll suffer on my own terms. Lisa shouted back, swinging the makeshift weapon like a torch. With that, the basement erupted in a furious storm of shadows and screams, the air fracturing with noise, suffocating them both. An intoxicating pull filled her veins, drawing her closer to the unfolding chaos. Was surrender their only option? The diary lay open, its pages flapping wildly as the woman's laughter echoed around them, promising unimaginable truths and even more unimaginable horrors. Would they find a way to fight back? Or would the darkness claim them as its own? The darkness surged, coiling around them like a vice. Lisa's heart slammed against her ribs as the woman's laughter morphed into a jagged symphony, screeching and howling in the air. Shadows danced with savage joy, lunging toward them, whispering filthy secrets that hungered for their souls. "Mark, we have to do something," she shouted, fighting against the panic that threatened to swallow her whole. The makeshift weapon felt heavy in her trembling hand, but it was all she had. I can hear them," Mark gasped, his fingers trembling as they clutched the diary tighter. "They're crying for release, Lisa. They want us to join them." "Join them? Are you insane? We have to fight." She swung the jagged wood, slamming it into the nearest shadow. It crackled like ice hitting fire, dispersing into a mist of wrath that hissed and circled her ankles. With a defiant shout, she hurled the weapon towards Mark, the sharp edge glimmering in the flickering light. "Use it. Break the connection. Please." The shadows shrieked in fury as Lisa stepped back, fighting the overwhelming urge to sink to her knees, the weight of despair pushing her down. Mark grimaced, glancing between her and the book, trapped in a web of dread and temptation. "They're taunting us," he murmured, his voice nearly drowned by the cacophony. "I can feel their anger. If we just accept, we'll be safe." "No," she cried, clenching her fists as new shadows slithered closer. "Safety isn't worth that price. Listen to me." Their voices clashed, battling against the hellish background noise. As Mark flipped another page, a burst of blinding light erupted, momentarily casting away the dark. Lisa shielded her eyes, feeling the shadows withdraw with a belching hiss. But the trance kept tightening around Mark. "Make it stop." Lisa's voice cracked as she lunged forward, grasping Mark's arm, pulling him back. The ground shook beneath them as she wrestled for his focus. Beyond Mark, the woman's face twisted in glee, morphing into a grotesque grin that sent icy shivers down Lisa's spine. "They can't take us if we don't give in." Lisa pressed, her resolve burning through the fear. "Think, Mark. We're better than them. We can overcome this, please." Caught between Lisa's fierce will and the diary's pull, Mark hesitated. The room thrummed with their collective terror, pulsing in the heavy air, shadows snarling and howling at their resistance. "Then what do we do?" Mark's voice cracked, the fight beginning to wane. "How can we beat them?" A sudden crash sounded as debris fell from above, sealing off a possible escape route. The walls closed in, and despair clawed at Lisa's throat. "We have to create a distraction. If I can keep them busy, you can dig for the truth hidden in the diary. Just find a way to banish these things." "Are you crazy?" he shouted. "It's too dangerous." Lisa squared her shoulders, her pulse thrumming. "No more running or giving in. I want to let them take you." With that, she launched herself at the nearest shadow. Her scream of defiance tore through the chorus of anguish, blending into a fierce battle cry. The moment her hands made contact, she felt a surge of power, drawing strength from her terror. Mark, surrounded by swirling darkness and howling wails, reached for the diary, gripping it like a lifeline. As Lisa wrestled with the shadows, he tore through the pages, searching for any secret that could reverse their fate. Electricity coursed through the air as the shadows shrieked. Lisa's arms engulfed in swirling darkness. Blood surged in her ears, drowning out everything but the cold, unyielding clutches that sought to consume her. "Mark," she screamed, "hurry." Just then, he found it a passage glowing faintly, throbbing with ancient energy. But as he opened his mouth to speak the words, the air in the room grew thick, nearly solid. The woman's voice pierced through the storm, now dangerously seductive and almost sweet. "You cannot escape the inevitable share in our fate. Join us." The darkness surged as shadows lunged, ready to tear them apart. Would Mark find the words to break their bond? Before it was too late? Or would Lisa's sacrifice serve only to bind their souls forever to the shadows? A breathless silence followed, drowning out the chaos. And as Mark's mouth opened to utter the ancient words, he hesitated. Those words carried weight. They weren't just syllables meant to be spoken. They held the essence of power, the potential to unlock something dreadful or to shatter the darkness once and for all. Lisa. Mark's voice quivered, torn between fear and hope. I think I found something. Before he could finish, the shadows roared back, the woman's laughter rising beyond the din. It echoed through the room, a spiraling cacophony that twisted and warped, curling around Lisa like icy tendrils. Every nerve screamed. The shadows were hungry, snatching at her with ferocity, dragging her down into despair. Stay strong. Don't look away, Mark urged, feeling the tremor of dread threatening to rip him apart as he clutched the diary tighter. His heart raced. With renewed determination, Lisa lunged toward the nearest darkness, her fists clenched. Get away from me, she bellowed, every ounce of defiance igniting a fire within her as she struck again. The shadow hissed as it recoiled, but more surged forward, eager, insatiable. Mark, scanning the pages frantically, sensed the shadows swirling in a dance of malice. They whispered sweet promises of life untouched by the horrors that had engulfed them, dreams of a future where they wouldn't have to fight, where they could be free. No, Mark shouted, shaking his head violently, sweat stinging his eyes. The threats of their demise were clawing at his sanity. We can't let them win. He found the passage again, pressing on the glowing letters that seemed to pulse beneath his fingertips. The room responded, vibrating with energy that felt not just alive, but predatory. Lisa, I need you to keep them off me, Mark yelled, his voice cracking as the shadows surged closer, encasing them in darkness. Not if I can help it, she roared back, reckless embers of courage igniting her spirit. She fought, striking out wildly, but with every swing, she could feel her strength waning. The shadows were relentless, pressing in like a dark tide. Each time she pushed one back, two more would emerge, their forms contorting and shrieking, hungry for her essence. Mark's eyes darted to the glowing text. It felt like a beacon of hope, but he could only hope that the price wouldn't be too steep. The words had power, ancient knowledge passed down through twisted histories. But who would suffer for it? He felt the urgency of the moment pressing like a physical weight. Lisa, he shouted again, desperation creeping into his voice as he memorized the words, determined to unleash what lay within their grasp. On three. When I say now, you have to distract them with everything you have. Okay, she gasped, adrenaline coursing through her veins. 1, 2 Mark counted, and the shadows slithered closer. The woman's laughter filled the air, seductive and lethal, echoing his fears back at him, echoing what might happen if they failed. Now, with a scream, Lisa leaped forward, an embodiment of rage and terror, and Mark began to recite the incantation, forcing his voice over the storm of shadows. The air shimmered, the room trembling, the very foundation beneath them threatening to shatter. The moment the first syllable slipped from his lips, darkness flickered. Shadows recoiled, but not all of them. The sacrifice would be monumental. Each word was an invocation, a summons against all they feared. And then, silence, only for a moment, but it felt like an eternity. Lisa stopped mid-fight, a warped expression of confusion adorning her features. Mark's voice faltered, the oppressive aura surrounding them twisting unnaturally in response to what they were stirring. But before he could call out again, bolts of energy erupted from the diary, illuminating the shadows in an explosion of blinding light. Those once dreaded whispers morphed into shrieks of agony, echoing across the room as the swirls of darkness began to collapse inward, begging for release. That Mark's heart raced. Had they summoned doom or salvation? Mark, don't stop, Lisa screamed, her defiance reigniting as the ground shook violently beneath their feet. But just then, a blinding flash swallowed the room, and in that instant, everything fell eerily silent once more. With his heart thrumming, Mark braced himself for what would come next. Whispers returned, soft and sinister, curling around him. Shadows surged back, re-emerging quickly, more powerful than before, and as the light dimmed, Mark's eyes widened in horror. Join us, they beckoned, and in the distance, The woman's laughter rose anew. Would they stand their ground against the mounting tide, or had they just awakened something infinitely worse? The air thickened with a dense tension as the shrill laughter reverberated within the walls, drowning out reason. Shadows, having tasted the flickering light, rushed forward with renewed vigor, eager to reclaim their lost power. Mark felt the cold grasp of despair tightening around his chest. "Lisa, don't give in." His voice was strained, the desperation palpable. He could see her fighting valiantly, fists swinging wildly at the encroaching darkness. The shadows twisted and recoiled but were relentless in their pursuit. But Mark could feel the energy from the diary waning. The light that had surged forth now flickered like a dying candle. He clung to the hope woven into the ancient words, each one a raging flame against the abyss. "We can reverse it. I just need to Mark. They're coming," she screamed, pointing towards a mass of swirling shadows that seemed to congeal into a figure, a grotesque imitation of humanity. As the figure emerged, Mark's heart sank. It was the same woman they had seen in the visions, her eyes wide and empty, lips stretching into a grin that revealed jagged teeth. "You were foolish to summon me," she hissed, her voice dripping with mockery, as though savoring their impending doom. "I am not just darkness, I am despair. And now, you will join your friend." No more words, no more hesitations. The time for action was over. Mark's resolve hardened. He pushed the thoughts of fear aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Lisa," he shouted over the chaos, his hands trembling as he gripped the diary. "We have to unify our strength. Whatever comes, we do it together. I'm with you," she yelled back, her voice fierce against the tide of shadows that in that moment. A connection sparked between them, pure, unyielding. Mark's voice rang out stronger as he began to recite the incantation again, the words flowing like a fire igniting a dry forest. The shadows wailed in protest, their forms shifting violently, as if the fabric of their being was being pulled apart. But the laughter of the woman danced through the air, brazen and untouched by fear. "You think your words have power? You're merely delaying the inevitable." Mark felt the darkness pressing against him, whispering deceitful promises. A vision flickered in the corners of his mind. Moments of bliss, of love, everything he held dear beckoned him to abandon the fight. "Don't listen to them," he roared. "Fight with me, Lisa." As the words spilled from his lips, the shadows began to pulsate, the air thickening as though the room itself were straining. The outlines of the walls warped, drowning them in a sea of swirling night. The woman lunged from the darkness, a void of malevolence. "You cannot escape me." Her hand reached out, cold and thin, as if grasping for Mark's very soul. The energy from the diary exploded once more, a blinding flash that momentarily filled the room with a brilliant white light. But it was fleeting. The shadows waned and surged again almost immediately, hungry and vengeful. They thrashed and pulsed around the two, a howling tempest of darkness eager to engulf everything in its path. Mark felt a quiver of doubt worm its way into his heart. "What should we do?" he shouted at Lisa, desperation clawing at him. "Keep going. We're not done yet," she shouted, her fists raised in defiance against the encroaching threat. As they fought together, the light from the diary attempted to break through the suffocating darkness one last time. Just when their voices harmonized into a fierce chant, a rumbling echo reverberated through the floor beneath them. The shadows surged, unyielding, and suddenly, they stopped. Silence fell, an unnerving stillness descending like a shroud. And then, a cackling broke the silence. "You've awakened something far worse than you can imagine." The shadows were peeling back, twisting like ribbons as a larger, darker entity began to fully manifest behind the woman, a grotesque, gargantuan form swirling with black mist and empty voids where its eyes would be. Mark's breath caught in his throat. "What have we done?" As the figure loomed larger, an unholy growl emanated from it, tearing through the silence. The darkness quivered in anticipation of claiming its next victims. "Hold my hand," Lisa cried urgently, her voice trembling as if knowing the fight was far from over. But as they linked fingers, a haunting truth settled in. The fight was against their very worst nightmares, and those were creeping ever closer. What awaited them in the depths of the shadows? Were they truly ready to face the embodiment of their worst fears? The growling intensified, echoing against the hard surfaces like a chorus of vengeful spirits. Mark could feel the vibrations in his chest, steady and foreboding. The shadows twisted around them, pulling at the edges of their sanity, a tangible force far greater than the woman or whatever she had once been. Lisa's voice trembled, her eyes darting from the gargantuan figure to the shadows that wrapped around them like angry serpents. "We can't hold on like this. We have to." He felt warmth drain from his fingers as the shadows coiled tighter around their hands, almost as if they were trying to pull them apart. "Focus on the light. Remember why we started this." But the darkness had a different plan. The woman's laughter returned, shrill and mocking, reverberating through the thick air. "Your light? It's nothing but a flicker in the endless night. You think you can fight despair? You will find only futility." With a final chilling wail, the shadows shoved forward, splintering apart into jagged tendrils that clawed at Lisa's limbs. Mark gritted his teeth against the fear swelling inside him, pushing through. "We can control it. We just need to channel it." He squeezed Lisa's hand, drawing on their connection like a lifeline. A faint glow danced around them, but it flickered uncertainly, fading just as quickly as it surged. Mark closed his eyes, whispering the incantation again, hoping desperately the words were enough. "Please." Lisa's scream broke through his concentration, panic lacing her voice. "They're too strong. Mark." A sudden pulse of shadows slashed through the space, severing their connection momentarily. Mark gasped, feeling the darkness rush in to fill the void. Lisa stumbled back, eyes wide, face pale. "We can't," she seemed to falter, the faintest hint of despair creeping into her voice. "No, we can't give up." Mark felt anger bubbling beneath his skin. "If we lose our faith, we lose everything." He lunged forward, trying to reconnect, but the figure loomed larger, its presence heavy and suffocating. It stretched out a hand, long fingers curling like iron snakes, reaching for them. The moment felt frozen in time. The shadows took shape around the figure. Eyes appeared, shifting from darkness to cold, piercing voids, reflecting every hidden terror they held. Each eye seemed to unravel their minds, revealing fears they thought buried deep. Mark's heart raced. He could see visions, grotesque images of failures, loneliness, regret, everything that made him feel unworthy. "Lisa, remember who we are. We are not just whispers in the dark." Mark's voice fought through the growing dread, rallying his stubborn hope. "We are fire. We can't let these shadows define us." The figure paused, shadows recoiling momentarily. Was it doubt he sensed from the darkness? Or just a flicker of hesitation? "Look!" Mark shouted, desperate now. "The light, the diary. Use it with me." Their fingers touched again, and a blaze ignited between them. The soft glow transformed, expanding, warm and fierce, pushing against the relentless shadows. The woman hissed, contorted, her face a mask of fury. Her laughter turned to shrieks of anguish, but even in the rising warmth, Mark felt that his strength, too, was slipping. "Lisa, it's not enough. We have to dig deeper." "I can't," she gasped, the chill creeping into her voice like frost. "No. This isn't just us. This has to be everyone." Mark's voice hung on a desperate thread, and in that moment, he uttered something deeper than magic, something true. "We fight for all of them. For every soul they've taken. Do it for them." In that instant, a surge of energy shot through them. The incantation morphed into a battle cry, echoing louder than the fear around them. The light intensified, expanding like a balloon ready to burst. The shadows screamed, desperate to cling to their prey. But what other horrors lurked in the dark? Mark winced as the figure contorted, desperate and angry, and a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if it wasn't just their worst fears? What if it was worse than they could ever imagine? As the shadows shrank, he could swear he saw another form behind them, glimmering just out of reach, a being of pure shadow and despair, waiting to unleash its wrath. "Mark!" Lisa shouted, panic lacing her tone. "What now?" But already, the darkness was lowering, shifting uneasily, the howls drowning their cries. "Stay close," he yelled, gripping her hand tighter, heart pounding against the suffocating dread. "We can't let them take us." Yet another surge of shadows erupted, and Mark sensed the echoes of ancient screams wrapping around them. Was this truly their final stand against what rose from the depths? With thunderous speed, they launched forward, light against dark, hope against despair, ready to confront whatever awaited them. But as they stepped closer, a chilling whisper echoed. You think you're so brave, but the true horror is yet to come. With fire surging through their hearts, Lisa and Mark inched forward, teeth gritted against the palpable dread. The darkness swirled around them, its hissing whispers filled with promises of defeat, but they held steadfast, hands tightly clasped. The monstrous figure loomed larger, its hollow eyes craving the light they fought to uphold. Stay focused, Mark shouted, breath coming in ragged gasps. The air thickened, sweat pooling at their brows. They were standing at the precipice of oblivion. But deep inside, an ember of determination ignited. We're not just fighting for ourselves. For those who lost their voices, here we fight for them. Lisa nodded, finding strength in his words. Together, always together, she affirmed, crushing the fear that threatened to consume her. She took a step forward, her heart hammering. Let us finish this. The shadowy tendrils recoiled, screeches filled the air as if they felt the weight of their combined strength. Mark felt that flicker of hope radiate between them, a promise forged in fire. Now, he yelled, unleashing the incantation with unwavering conviction. The diary erupted in bright energy, illuminating the basement as if the sun itself had broken free from the grasp of night. Shadows shrieked in horror, swarming back like a tide threatened by a sudden storm. Blazing lights surged from the pages, weaving a golden thread through the encroaching darkness, severing their ties to the cursed past. Don't stop, Lisa urged, a fierce resolve flooding her veins. She felt an overwhelming rush of connection, a bond with every soul lost to the shadows, every story trapped within the dark. They could do this. With renewed vigor, Lisa and Mark poured everything they had into that impossible fight, voices lifting in a powerful crescendo. We are here. We remember. You can't take us. The abyss trembled. The gargantuan figure stumbled backward, rage painted across its features like darkness clashing against the dawn. In a blinding flash, shadows erupted, the air vibrating with ancient anger, wailing like banshees yearning to keep their hold. But the light pulsed stronger, and Mark felt the ground beneath them shudder with desperation. Lisa, push harder, he urged, feeling the pulse of the energy coursing through them, connecting them like roots of a resilient tree stretching down into the earth. Each cry, each scream of pain from the shadows invigorated their resolve. They were no longer alone, each name once lost now echoing through them. With that thought, a great surge erupted, a tidal wave of force barreled through the room, collapsing darkness and sparking vivid light that screamed through the basement. The shadows screeched, their anguished cries weaving into a symphony of fear as the towering figure writhed. No, it bellowed. You cannot wield what you do not understand. But the truth lay there, glimmer of hope. With every name remembered, every soul honored, the shadows lost their grip. And then a deafening silence followed. The shadows whirled and melded into the walls, fading like whispers in the wind, their furious roars turning to echoes barely a sigh. Breathless, Lisa and Mark stepped back, panting, yet a weight lifted as they looked around. Gone were the shadows clawing at their sanity. The basement felt achingly quiet, pure. The anger that had once saturated the air had lifted, in absence now, leaving space for clarity. They had fought back and won. For now, Mark's heart pounded in his chest. Did we really do it? He stammered, voice thick with disbelief. Lisa looked around, the tension aching, but hope flickered anew in her chest. I think we did. She gasped, astonished. But the victory hadn't come freely. The memories of those lost fought for persistence. They would forever be part of Maplewood. As they emerged from the darkness, a cool breeze brushed against their skin, and the air felt lighter, no longer suffocating. They exchanged relieved glances, knowing while the darkness had threatened to swallow them whole, they had emerged victorious, the connection they forged transforming them into something bigger than their own fears. We won't forget, Lisa whispered, her grip on Mark's hand tightening. We'll carry them with us. They deserve to be remembered. Mark nodded fiercely. Always, he replied, certainty filling his tone. With the first rays of sun gleaming through the basement window, illuminating the darkness that had once consumed them, they stood united, defiant, and whole. Their journey would continue, and they would share the legacy of those who had come before them, transforming the dark tales into lessons of hope. "Let us go home," Lisa said, a firm determination in her voice as they climbed the stairs together, casting aside the haunt that lingered, not as lost souls bound eternally in darkness, but as light-bearers, rekindling hope in a world shadowed by fears long forgotten. Now is your moment to join this journey. You need to subscribe now to catch every spine-tingling tale and ensure you won't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us get these mysteries out into the world. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What did you think of the ending? What's next for Lisa and Mark? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps the thrill alive.